Welcome back. Today we'll be finishing a piece that we started before, the example using masking tape to create a pattern. So now we'll be making the circle. You'll start by placing your inner circle stencil in the center of the square. You'll want to press firmly around the edge of the stencil before you start applying paint, and just start adding the color of your circle. You'll want to lift the stencil with the paint still wet. Now you can see that I made a little mistake with my pink paint, and I'm going to go in and try to fix it. I start with like a damp brush and notice that wasn't working, and I flung the brush out of my hand. Since the brush was not working to clean up the mess up, I grabbed my towel. Dip the corner of your towel in water. Cloth works better than paper towels in this instance, and start gently rubbing and dabbing the wet paint. Eventually the pink will come off, and because the surface is completely dry underneath, I don't have to worry about the undercoat coming off. I also used a clean dry brush to kind of clean it up as best I can. But what's nice about wet acrylic paint on dry acrylic paint is you can wipe it off very easily. All right, so now I begin touching up the background. I see little spots that I want to look a little bit different. And I, with a clean damp brush, smooth the edge of the circle. So what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of moving the paint to make a smoother line. I do this slowly so I make fewer mistakes that way. But you just rotate your canvas as needed until you're satisfied with the way it's looking. I had another layer of pink because I could see the lines below it or beneath it. And then I'm also smoothing the lines again. Sometimes I made little mistakes on one end, so I go back and correct it. It's just sort of a little back and forth sort of dance to try to get get the lines to look as well as I'd like. And I need to clean the stencils, and I forgot to do this. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to put the stencils in the water pan that I have, because I'll need to use them later. I grab my dirty towel and plop the stencils on the towel and give them a scrub. Takes a minute, but as you can see, they come clean pretty easily. I got paint on my second stencil, so I need to clean that one as well. Alright, so I'm all done with the towel. Put that away. And I'm going to go grab my hair dryer to speed up the drying process. It needs to be completely dry before you switch to your next stencil. And then while I'm drying, I'm just taking my brush and cleaning up little specks that I see throughout the canvas that need touch-ups. Alright, so at this stage I am checking for damp paint. Basically, the paint is damp if it feels cool to the touch or is a little bit tacky. In my case, it was a little damp still, so I started drying again. Alright, so the paint feels good and dry. Now we're going to move on to the next step. I'm going to grab the inner stencil, circle stencil, and I'm going to use it, and I'm going to essentially be putting a little shadow behind the circle is the effect I'm trying to create here. And before I start adding color, it's important to press firmly, and that'll help prevent the paint from seeping behind the stencil. But I'm using down a very watered down gray to add color around the edge of the circle. And this process takes a little while. It's a little tedious, but I think the effect at the end is quite nice. Alright, so after lifting the stencil, I'm going to start smoothing the line again. Using a clean brush, I'm just absorbing some of the wet paint, some of the excess paint, and I'm pushing the paint to get closer to the edge. And I just continue doing this slowly, kind of moving, pushing, and cleaning up paint as I go, rotating the canvas so that I have the best line possible. And then once I'm feeling good about that, I go grab my blow dryer and finish drying it up. Alright, so next up I'm going to do a highlight around the edge of the inner part of the circle. So I grab my outer stencil again and start adding white to the edge of the circle. And I'm using straight white, titanium white here. I start kind of thin and I end up going thicker. I always end up going thicker. And lift the stencil with the paint still wet. And then I'm going to kind of smooth out the surface. I start adding a little pink to kind of blend the white and the pink together. And what I'm doing here is just making it more uniform and making that white line a much thinner line. I also like to pull in some of the background color when I do these, so I'm grabbing some of that blue background into the pink and using that to blend together. And I'm making this white line border and a pinkish purpley circle. So this will just continue rotating the canvas as I go along. Alright, once that looks pretty good, I'm going to go back with a clean, damp filbert brush and smooth the outer edge. And I'm just trying to, touch up any areas that are a little uneven or little blemishy looking spots. And then I'm almost done. Alright, there we are. Finished. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.